Friday the 13th, a day Westerners consider unlucky. Last November, it was tragic. A wave of terror attacks across Paris killed 130 people and injured hundreds more. This is the Bataclan concert hall where 90 people were shot or blown up by suicide bombers. The venue reopens on Saturday, the eve of the anniversary, with a performance by British rock star Sting. It's a sign that Paris is moving forward, although memories of the attacks are still vivid and the threat of more attacks remains high.
There's always a risk with terrorism. The risk is, we can fight against the risk, but the risk exists. And I think in France, and especially in Paris, and especially in this area, the idea and the trauma of the terrorism is still in the conscience.
In the face of this ongoing threat, France has stepped up its military commitment against ISIL in Syria and Iraq, while at home tens of thousands of armed soldiers patrol streets across the country. The state of emergency declared last November remains in effect, giving police extra powers to carry out searches and place people under house arrest.
One of the problems with state of emergency is mainly its duration. There is no control over it, and it's tending to become permanent. There is a feeling into the public opinion that state of emergency is defending our way of life, whereas it is also infringing on our liberties.
The state of emergency, the heavily armed soldiers patrolling the streets, it's all part of a raft of security measures introduced by France to try and make people here feel more secure. But attacks are still happening. In July, 86 people were killed in a terror attack in the south of France. 2 weeks later, a priest was murdered by an ISIL devotee. And so while people here do want to move forward to put the events of last November behind them, there is also a rather grim acceptance that terrorism is now a part of life in France. Kate Parkinson, CCTV, Paris.
Right, let's get you more on that story now. I'm joined live from Paris by our correspondent, Kate Parkinson. Kate, as we heard from that report, the Bataclan is opening again tonight. Just how significant do people there consider this event?
It is very significant in the coming hours. It's going to be very busy around here, although I can tell you there's already a big security presence because it is just one day before the anniversary of those deadly terror attacks. The fact that the Bataclan is opening on the eve of the anniversary is extremely significant. Of all the venues that were attacked, and as I mentioned in my report, it was a coordinated series of attacks across Paris, targeting first of all the Stade de France, the National Football Stadium, and then bars and restaurants around the city, and then ending here with a hostage situation and the killing of 90 people in the Bataclan. Now, of all the venues that were targeted, the Bataclan is the last one to open its doors, and the organisers were really keen to do that, certainly before the one-year anniversary. They didn't want it to be turned into a tomb, a memorial for those who died. They wanted it to reopen and to rock once more as the iconic music venue that it once was. And so almost a year to the day that those attacks took place, the British rock star Sting will be performing here tonight. There were 1,000 tickets on sale. They sold out within 30 minutes. Hundreds of tickets were kept to one side for survivors of the attacks, and many of those are expected to attend, although unsurprisingly we are told that psychologists will also be on hand should anyone need psychological support at the event, because it's going to be very emotionally charged, and for some people it could be extremely traumatic.
And Kate, looking ahead to tomorrow, what is on the schedule tomorrow for the anniversary?
Well, tomorrow is going to be a very sombre day. The French President, François Hollande, will be visiting all of the sites that were targeted. Starting early in the morning, he will be going, first of all, to the Stade de France. At each location, a plaque will be put up. On that plaque, the names of the victims who died in that location will be written. We understand the names will also be read out, and a minute's silence will be held. In total, 6 plaques will be put up around the city. and the events will end up here at the Bataclan, where, of course, we know that 90 people died. It's going to be a very somber event. Certainly, the government are keen to not be seen to be trying to gain any political advantage out of this. We have 6 months to go before presidential elections are held here in France. Security and the ongoing terror threat are going to be huge themes during the presidential campaigns. So the government are really trying to make sure that tomorrow's events are very much focused on the victims and the survivors and the families. It's going to be a very somber day, certainly here in Paris tomorrow.
And finally, of course, what we heard from your report was that France as a country has essentially and fundamentally changed in many ways since the attack. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, yes, France has changed to its very core. I mean, on the one hand, people are getting on with their lives. Life does go on. And even though in the early days after the November attacks, you really didn't see people in the bars and restaurants, certainly not sitting on the terraces, which is where so many people were shot on that fateful Friday night last year. But as the months have gone by, life has started to return to normal. Having said that, people are still nervous. They're still very aware that this could happen again. And on an almost weekly basis, we hear about metro lines or train lines being delayed because of suspicious packages. There have been some very frightening false alarms. Just a few months ago, Paris was on high alert because there was reports that a church had a hostage situation underway. It was a hoax. It was a completely false alarm, but for an hour or so there, the whole city was once again on edge, bracing themselves for another attack. And the sad fact is that even though people really hope it's not going to happen, they do kind of expect that it will happen. And we have seen things become very normal now. When you go shopping in France, it's very normal to present your bag to be checked. Sometimes there are body checks as well. This is very much the new normal. And even in schools with very young children, they're carrying out terror drills so that kids know what to do if, or indeed when, there is another terror attack.
Kate, thank you very much for that update. That was our correspondent, Kate Parkinson, joining us live from the French capital, Paris.